Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly, and welcome everybody once again for another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of the total market cap charts, talking about each and every major index, so that you guys can understand exactly where I think this next cycle is headed, and what the market structure is ultimately going to be looking like. I have a really cool chart to share with you guys, talking all the way back to 2016 for Ethereum. Ethereum's been one of the greatest performing altcoins, and what's amazing to see is that the total market cap today is actually following one of those early cycles, which is leading up to a very big rise in value very soon. If you're new and just find this channel, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Always remember to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos like the one provided for you here. And make sure you guys sign up and join the Discord server with over 20,000 members growing. Links are in the description for that. You guys can also go ahead and find my ebook download of Beginner's Guide to Crypto, understanding some of the basics. Both of those are in the description. Check it out. With that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so here we are taking a look at the total altcoin market cap. Now I didn't want to jump into the total crypto market cap. We're just going to be talking about excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then we're going to be looking at the DeFi chart. Now, the reason I want to talk to you guys about this today is because I see something that's playing out inside the market structure that tells me that the next cycle that's coming is most likely the one that leads to a lot more mainstream adoption. Now, everybody for the course of the last pretty much 5 to 6 years, ever since I've been in crypto, which is a little over 6 years, one of the biggest talking points that I've ever seen has always been people talking about, when are we going to get mainstream adoption? When are we going to have the one cycle where everybody comes in by the droves? You have mainstream adoption for the first time in real significant numbers. What, when, how, what does that look like, and all of those questions? Everybody's been kind of asking about that over the course of the last 6 years. Now, in the last 3 to 4 years, I'd say that that conversation has ramped up significantly, especially when you had Three Arrows Capital, Suzu. He was somebody that was actually really big on talking about the super cycle, talking about how this is a big super cycle that's going to be playing out. We're not going to have the same bear markets. We're going to have a much lengthier trend on the upside where this is the one where we finally go mainstream. And while a lot of people have kind of talked about this idea, I've never really found it to have that much substance, because even inside of a market cycle where a ton of mainstream adoption takes place, will always be a blow off top. And I think that most people, they think in their heads, they look at the stock market, they look at Apple, they look at Amazon, they look at Netflix, or they look at whatever random stocks had massive uptrends over the last few years. Some of the bigger ones have only ever uptrend. If we look at Walmart, if we look at Boeing, some of these older companies that have been around for a long time, they've literally only ever gone up in a big vertical uptrend. And so a lot of people compare crypto and they'll say to themselves, oh man, well look at these stock charts. If the stock market could do this for 100 years, then why couldn't crypto do this? And I think a lot of people are internalizing that thought, and I just simply don't necessarily agree, because even if we get a ton of mainstream adoption, even if this is the super cycle, quote unquote, where we finally do get all of that new retail money that jumps in, we'll still end up having a massive cycle top, and what will ultimately follow isn't a multi-year bull market, but a multi-year bear market. It's always the opposite of what we think is going to be playing out. Now, with that being said, I'm not any less bullish on the future outlook of crypto, and that's why I wanted to share with you guys these charts today. Now, this is the crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin. Now, so basically just the altcoin total market cap. This was basically our first cycle that we ever had, was this one back in 2017. 2016, when we made our first higher high, there was like Dogecoin, there was XRP, and there was just a small handful of cryptos back then. 2017 was this massive alt season that we saw, the biggest rise in any of the cycles. And then most recently, we really had pretty much the same sort of following as Bitcoin. We made new all-time highs. It was a nice profitable move had you got in at any of the low points down in here. But it wasn't nearly as big as the 2017 cycle. Now, when I look at this chart, I simply don't look at this as the same as this massive 2017 cycle. because I would look at this as just a smaller part of a bigger cycle. So when we talk about this idea of a super cycle, I definitely think it's a possibility. And there will be that one cycle where we do get massive mainstream adoption, a true multi I don't know what the way to describe it would be, but basically a true cycle where institutions come in, corporations come in, retail investors come in. It becomes massively adopted to the point where we're using it in our everyday life, and it's just as average as what our cell phones are today. That's what I'm talking adoption. I still think we're a ways away from that point, but I do believe that we are getting close, and the charts are telling us this. Inside of a super cycle, we wouldn't expect that the market is just going to do something like this for 5 years or 10 years or more. What we would expect in a super cycle is this type of a move to play out over a much greater period of time. You know, when we look at this, there's almost no pullbacks. There's definitely not anything we would consider a bear market. It's just these little tiny consolidations before further breaking out in higher highs. And so what we're seeing inside of this cycle is a little bit different. And that's why I believe that we really could be in the super cycle. But what most people's ideas of what the super cycle is just a little bit off. It's not like we're never going to have bear markets inside of a super cycle. We'll continue to have those same bear markets, but they're going to be less severe than the ones prior. And then the move to the upside, won't quite be as parabolic, but we'll see much more consistent price growth to where it will become more consistent. The gains won't be quite as big, but when we get into much more of an adoption type of cycle, I would expect, lesser bear markets, maybe not quite as parabolic type of rallies, but with us being at this early point in the cycle, it's really hard to say exactly what the cycle will look like. It's hard to say, ultimately whether we'll have the same sort of major parabolic runs, because if we're looking back at the last cycle, this one here, it wasn't quite as big as 2017. There wasn't quite as many profits. There wasn't quite as much money to go around. But nonetheless, had you got in early and timed it right, you still made a significant amount of money. And there still was altcoins that did 1,000x. Some of them did a few 1,000x. So there's always those outliers. There's always going to be certain opportunities where you can find that gold mine, right? Where you can buy and make that few 100x or 1,000x, whatever it is. I just think that as the gains become more consistent, as the trend becomes a little bit more consistent as far as looking at 2017, this was just a vertical explosion. I'm not necessarily expecting that same type of price growth on the total market cap, the indexes. There will be lower market cap cryptos that definitely will. You're always going to have in the beginning of the cycle that crypto that goes from 100 million in market cap all the way to a few billion and maybe 100 billion. It happens every single time. And so if you're lucky enough to find one of those, you do your own research, you can definitely know those. But I think that the idea of that happening more and more frequent is going to be less and less. The more money that comes into the market, the less volatility the market has. The more money it takes to move the prices up or down. Now, with the institutions coming in, basically since 2018, they started coming in and they've been buying the dips. They've been accumulating this entire time. When they're accumulating, they're thinking, very big picture with the plans to sell on each local top. If you're looking at what the institutions have done so far, they've basically nailed every single top. They've bought the bottoms every single time, and they're really good at what they do. And so when this happens, I would expect that the volatility to decrease. The price expansions wouldn't be quite as big as what they were in previous cycles. Same with the sell side pressure, because we're having much more whales stepping into the market, much more big money with large amounts of capital that can ultimately absorb large amounts of the supply of crypto, Bitcoin specifically, and it's going to cause the price to be less volatile. This is where I think that as we get to true adoption, we want to get to more of a whole type of mindset. You do want to take profits in the bull cycles for sure, but I think that with Bitcoin, there's such a scarce supply, and that's the staple on a number of different cryptos, but thinking in Bitcoin terms, it's such a small supply that now that the institutions are in, that they've been accumulating, you have certain institutions, you have certain people alone that accumulate such a large amount of the supply of Bitcoin that most people will never even own one full coin. Most people will never even own a quarter of a Bitcoin. And so with us getting into this mainstream adoption, we're going to start to see this technology taking over. And then it becomes almost valueless. Like, how do we value the price of Bitcoin in a way where we've never actually had a true value system. Think about in terms of dollar, where we've just been printing all of these new dollars into existence. As that's been going on, we have this perceived increase of value, but everybody realizes that inflation is a double-edged sword. We're not actually benefiting in both ways. Imagine if we had this global reserve currency that had a capped supply, that we knew that there was only ever going to be this amount, and we could see that based off of the blockchain, we can see that there's actually a lot of those crypto tokens that are actually just gone completely. They might just be lost in the supply from the early days, whatever that is, and so it makes it even more scarce. So now let's assume that we have this new world, this new digital age, where everything's becoming digital. All of our money is digital. Everything that we do is digital. Everything that is done through sending data, through sending money, through sending, whatever it is, it's all done through crypto and blockchain. Well, in that case, Bitcoin's value proposition goes up tremendously because now we have the entire network of the internet to value. Well, when we're valuing it in terms of what did we value, how did we hold our assets throughout the last 2,000 years of mankind, we did things in terms of gold. Everything in our value was held in gold. That was our reserves. That's what the kings held. That's what the queens and the bankers and the whatnot, the royalty. The digital age will be the exact same. It's just taking a different measurement. Instead of gold, we're going to be using Bitcoin. And the great thing about Bitcoin is while it's not physical, while it will never be, what gold is, it's something that is quicker, it's something that is cheaper, it's something that's effective, and it's something that is more scarce than gold. There is way less Bitcoin in the big picture than there is gold that we can mine out of the ground. We can pull out gold out of the ground. You can mine asteroids that are solid gold. There is gold everywhere inside of the world. There is not that many Bitcoin. And so while we'll never use Bitcoin in the same ways that we use gold for the most part, we'll use Bitcoin in new ways that gold could never be used for, and vice versa. And so there's value in each side, but I personally believe that just by simply holding a little bit of crypto before the mainstream adoption takes place, that is where all of the money will be made. Because imagine when the dollar collapses. Other countries, all of the other emerging countries are already talking about dropping the dollar and starting their own world reserve currency. The entire world will move to a global reserve. The entire world will move to a global reserve currency. It's only inevitable that that happens. It will be crypto. It's the only way that makes sense to have a true global currency. And when this all takes place, what are they going to trust as a store of value? In my opinion, it's Bitcoin. So by getting exposure, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Solana, whether it's Binance Coin, it doesn't matter. Many of these will ultimately be here for the future, and these are buying software of the future. You're accumulating literally the technology of the future in real estate form. Crypto, in a way, is digital real estate, and I've always kind of looked at that. NFTs are very similar to that as well, but there's only a certain amount of these tokens. Bitcoin's a cap supply, Ethereum's a cap supply waiting to be further deflationary when ETH 2.0 further releases. But nonetheless, these are all capped supplies. Eventually, there's only going to be so many people selling. These things are going to become valuable. These things are going to be used. Everybody's going to be wanting to stake these assets for a further return, however that may look. And so when that happens, there's not going to be a supply to buy. The price isn't going to sell off because people are locking up their assets. People are holding these assets. People are looking at this as real estate. Oh, well, I'm going to hold this. I'm going to speculate that with so many people needing and using the internet, people needing to build decentralized applications, I'm going to stake and lock away my 32 Ethereum in the network. I'm going to earn yield off of this. I still keep my 32 Ethereum, but I'm going to earn yield off of this for the rest of my life. As we're moving into this digital age, this is what I believe happens with crypto. And when we're looking at these charts, they reflect what, in my opinion, is an early cycle that could really take off in a big way. And what I keep looking at is this early 2016 Ethereum cycle. If you notice here, when Ethereum first got added, we made our first little cycle here, consolidated for a little while, and then we went for that massive 2017 bull run. In my opinion, what we're seeing today, the price structure looks very similar. This move looks very similar to this move down here. Yes, it's a little bit different, but for the most part, when we're looking at this and we're zooming out, this type of consolidation, a move past the all-time highs, fall back on the previous all-time high, looks a lot like this move that we saw here. It's just a bigger type of a move that's coming. And so with that being said, if we are going to get some major adoption that takes place, I would think that it's probably going to lead closer to this next cycle. We're already over 12 years into this Bitcoin trend. Historically, whenever a major technology gets massively adopted, it takes about 10 to 15 years. Having us go into one more major big cycle, and that could be the one where we get true adoption, would make sense because that would put us at that 15-year mark for where the average rate of adoption takes place for technology. So when we're looking at these charts, if we end up having a similar type of cycle to that one that Ethereum saw in 2016, or I should say 2017 is the one we'd be going into, even if it's just a major blow off top, it would still be so big. There would still be so much money coming into the markets that while you wouldn't make the same gain as buying Ethereum, and having it go on a big cycle as you would buying something with maybe 100 million or a billion in market cap, nonetheless, I think that the charts are telling us that that is what is taking place. Ethereum doesn't have to give us the biggest percent return. It could give us a 30x move. And for Ethereum to give us a 30x move at $1,500 a coin, that's a giant type of move. And now all of that money is going to be going into other projects. It's a domino effect. It leads to the rest of the market. It's not any different than prior cycles. But what this looks like to me is just that early stage. When we're looking at the total market cap of altcoins, when we're looking at the total market cap of altcoins excluding Ethereum, all of these look pretty much the same as that early 2017, or I should say, that early 2016 cycle for Ethereum. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at this. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to have to watch and see how it plays out, but the market structure is different. This price structure looks vastly different than any of the prior bear markets. The wave count is a little bit different. I personally believe that we have one more major wave 5 to go before this cycle's done. And with us showing that, it would line up very closely with that 2017 cycle, because this is just a little sideways price action. If we're looking at it in terms of, let's pull up this chart here, because this is easier to, sorry for the contrast, this is even hurting my eyes right now. I'll fix this chart later. But when we're looking at this chart, this was Ethereum and the altcoin total market cap in that early stages of 2016 and 2017. This was the previous all-time high. And what we can see is we got this same consolidation right after we broke out of the previous all-time highs. So what I find is interesting is that we're making this exact same consolidation again, once again, right after the breakout of a previous all-time high. This one retested it, this one retested it, this one did the exact same thing in each of our cycles. And so I honestly think that this is the type of a move that could be coming. I'm not saying that it has to be nearly as parabolic. We have way more money in the market, so realistically, the volatility will be substantially less. But with us getting ready for a true adoption cycle, if we do get a genuine retail cycle in the next move, it will be equally as powerful. There will be the same sort of money coming into the markets, the same sort of gains will be had, and every single sort of altcoin will break out, make a new all-time high, and pretty much finish their cycles. If this is the move that's coming for the next crypto cycle, I genuinely believe that that leads to a multi-year bear market. I don't think that we could keep up momentum after that by any means. I'm going to be looking to scale out and probably not be looking to buy back in for probably 2-3 years after that point. I would expect a long bear market to follow if we see something like this. But when we're looking around us, adoption is here. I think that if we're at a point of adoption, it's most likely going to be taking place relatively soon. But all we can do is speculate. This is the idea that I had. If you guys found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these updates. If you guys want to join the Discord server or download my free ebook, links are in the description for that. You guys can also sign up for my VIP, follow all the trades that I take, all the stuff that I post privately in my Discord gets taught to you guys there. Links are in the description. Go ahead and sign up on my website. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.